Alright. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So today inshallah ta'ala we'll be continuing discussing the book Al-Mulakhis Al-Fiqhi by Shaykh Salih Fawzan Hafidullah ta'ala. And in the last lesson that we had, that we start discussing matters regarding matters mentioned Kitab At-Talaq, which is the overall discussion is regarding matters that are relating to separations in marriages. Then we discussed the first of those chapters that he discussed, or Bab, is Bab Al-Khul'. So we discussed what he mentioned regarding Al-Khul' and its ahkam to some degree. And now we go to the second chapter, which is Bab At-Talaq.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi qala ma'allif hafidhahullah, chapter 2, page 427, titled Divorce. Divorce is the dissolution of the bond of marriage or part of it. The ruling on divorce varies according to the different situations. It can be permissible, detestable, desirable, obligatory, or prohibited. So it can involve any of the main 5 rulings.
So the author he discussed regarding concerning that they were starting, that they discuss normally, that they'll mention regarding Bab al-Talaq, then they'll go into discussing what is defined as talaq. So they mention regarding at-talaq, lugatan and also istilahan. So the author rahimullah, or hafidullah, so the author hafidullah, I've mentioned regarding, as for at-talaq, as he mentioned, hil al-qaid al-nikah or ba'd. So is the person at termination of the marriage, whether incomplete or by ba'd or in part. So it's a termination of the marriage, either by way of complete, where both are completely separated, or by way of ba'd, that a talaq is in its process, but has yet to be completed. So that's concerning at-talaq. Then he mentioned, then he's discussed the next matter regarding this, that the hukum, or regarding the hukum, that he mentioned that فَهُوَ مُخْتَلِفٌ بِاخْتِلَافِ الظُّرُوف, that as for wal-ahwal, that the ruling may vary depending on situation and circumstance, but they mentioned regarding concerning at-talaq as an overall general rule, they mentioned it is jaiz. So the general ruling as for talaq, that it is something which is jaiz, it is permissible, and as they are mentioned that so we'll be using in this particular lesson a lot the book of Al-Salsabil fi Shar Dalil by Sheikh Saad Khatlan, Sheikh Saad Khatlan. So we're going to use this book a lot regarding this discussion. So he mentioned regarding concerning that as for the evidence that will be discussed, but it is something overall that it is jaiz. Then the Sheikh he went in to discuss regarding that being something which is that the ruling may fall into one of the 5 categories regarding ahkam sharia, that they are placed into 5 categories that they mention, that you will clarify those 5. At times it could be in a person's case wajib for them to divorce, in some cases mustahab, in some case could be mubah, in some case haram, and another case could be makruh. So divorce could fall into one of those areas depending on the circumstance, but the overall that it is something which is jaiz or mashru', it is permissible. Aywa.
Divorce is permissible when the husband needs it because of his wife's ill conduct, the harm caused to him by keeping his wife, and the non-fulfillment of the legal objective of marriage by keeping her.
Yes, that's concerning this, the hikmah, or the reason of permissibility of divorce, why it is something which is mashru', is regarding, as the Shaykh mentioned, that is when concerning that fasad have occurred regarding the marriage. So that the marriage is not functioning as it should. So based upon this, then and also it starts to bring about other problems between husband and wife. So there's a constant problem, they're constantly fighting. One and other thing that occur in a marriage. So due to that, and also sometimes the incompatibility become more noticeable between both. So there's a constant tug or war, or that they're moving away from each other. They're not fulfilling the objective of marriage. between both. So in certain cases that becomes something, this shows the permissibility of them to separate and live their own life separate, rather than to remain in a marriage that is not fulfilling, is objective, not fulfilling, it's objective. So it shows also show regarding that Islam is balanced compared to other religion. We find regarding that in certain religion or in certain practice that there's no divorce. Somewhat they make divorce very difficult, where the sense of it doesn't exist. And other cases we will find that there are those who are very relaxed in divorcing of their divorce between husband and wife for anybody, just about for anything. So overall, regarding concern, Islam does allow divorce, especially when the marriage is not fulfilling the objective, and both husband and wife that find that being in a marriage is of no benefit for either. Anyone?
However, divorce is detestable if there is no need for it, as when there is no problem between the married couple, some scholars deem it prohibited in such a case. According to the preponderant view, divorce is permissible with detestability in this case. For the Prophet ﷺ says, the most detestable lawful act in the sight of Allah is divorce, related by Abu Dawood and Ibn Majah, and the men of its chain of transmitters are trustworthy.
Just a pause on that you mentioned regarding this hadith as a proof to show the permissibility of divorce. That as for this hadith concerning Aqbad halal ila Allah at-talaq, this hadith is somewhat hadith that is discussed between the ulama. So the hadith that is discussed between the ulama regarding its authenticity. The Shaykh he mentioned and concerning rijaluhu thiqat. So at the end he mentioned rijaluhu thiqat al-hadith in the Abu Dawood Ibn Majah, or rijaluhu thiqat, that indicating, so they mentioned that statement, as he mentioned, rijaluhu meaning the narrators of the hadith, they are thiqat, they are trustworthy, credible narrator. That is just a portion of the criteria for hadith to be authentic, but it's not all the criteria. So this statement by itself, it doesn't per se, it means or to be taken that hadith is authentic. That's by saying rijaluhu thiqat, that doesn't mean that hadith is authentic. And with study of the hadith, as we had meant that the hadith is somewhat between the ulama considered to be daif. That the hadith in reality is considered to be the hadith is daif. So at times people may use this hadith to say regarding is to kind of somewhat to force themselves or to be patient in a marriage that they know is not serving its purpose. Because they see that's something which is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they prefer to remain in the marriage, use the dalil, but this evidence or this hadith is not considered to be authentic. The reason for it not being authentic, because the hadith is, you might say the hadith is of those hadiths that are well known and used by many. So you find that this hadith that I mentioned, that there's this book that is called Al-Maqasid Al-Hasana fi Bayan Kathir min Ahadith Mushtahara ala al-Alsina, and it's by As-Sakhawi. So this book by Sakhawi is in about 4 or 5 volumes. So the general hadith, this book, it collects a hadith that are said to be the Maqasid al-Hasana, hadith that are somewhat commonly used by many. So hadith that is somewhat, so the hadith that is floating, used by everyone. He can somewhat collected those hadith and then give them the appropriate grading. So some of these hadith that are somewhat common amongst the people, that are commonly used amongst the people, at times some are sahih and at times others are not. Even sometimes the hadith it has no basis. So kind of somewhat he gathered those ahadith during that time, which is Sakhawi, and Sakhawi rahimahullah, one of the top students of Ibn Hajar. One of the top students of Ibn Hajar, also one of the top books, one of the main books in Ilm al-Hadith, where it said Mustalah. Now, so he kind of somewhat made this collection and others, and he discussed this hadith. So this hadith that is mentioned, it is discussed. So he mentioned the hadith, according to this, that this hadith is number 10 on the list of hadith. So the 10th hadith in this collection by As-Sakhawi, and in general custom outline that the hadith is daif. So of those who hold the hadith, we will find that a long discussion, but in some narration of hadith, the narrator of the hadith from the Sahaba is Ibn Omar, anhuma, and that hadith is musnada, it comes with a full chain. Then you have a second narration of the hadith that it comes without the Sahabi, where the narrator, who is Muharib ibn Dithar, he narrates direct upon the Prophet of Islam. Muharib is a tabi'i. So they mention, so the hadith is considered to be mursal, where a tabi'i narrates upon the Prophet of Islam directly, then the hadith is said to be mursal, because naturally it has a breakage. Because a tabi'i never met the Prophet of Islam. It's impossible. So any narration you find that a tabi'i narrate upon the Prophet ﷺ directly, then the hadith is generally classified to be mursal. Because and that's the hadith, and to be generally classed as a weak hadith. Because there's a breakage between that tabi'i and the Prophet ﷺ, there are others between them. So some narration, which is the bulk of the narration, or most of the narration, they are narrated mursala, with a broken chain. From the tabi upon the Prophet ﷺ is a broken chain. But the one that mentioned Ibn Umar, that it goes contrary to everyone else. The one that mentioned the Sahabi, or mentioned Ibn Umar bin Sahabi, that narration, it goes contrary to all the narrations. Everyone else mentioned the hadith mursala. So they mentioned that even though the one who narrates this hadith of Ibn Umar, that it is said that it is mentioned that he makes errors. So he made a wahm, so he made an error. So the hadith really that he narrate, even though he mentioned Ibn Umar, that narration is considered to be an error from his side. So the hadith is the one that majority of the ulama, they kind of somewhat more acknowledge as being a more authentic narration, is the one which is mursala, not the one which is musnada. So a person might ask, if you say that Ibn Umar is known and mentioned in some narration, isn't that enough? That's not the case. So ilm al-hadith is not 1 + 1 = 2. Ilm al-hadith is not 1 + 1 = 2. Is rules. And each rule is applied accordingly. So they say that in this case you have hadith which is mursala and one which is musnada, mawsula. But in this case, precedent, strength is given to the one which is mursala, with an incomplete chain, because the ones who narrate that they are more reliable in their narration, and also they are more in numbers. So if you have four narrators, all reliable, 3 saying one thing that is saying, in this case 3 saying the hadith is mursala and 1 saying the hadith is musnada. So they took the 3 and do away with the 1, because these other 3, they are stronger than him, plus adding together give more strength upon each other. So that's overall, if ilm al-hadith kind of sounds like a general thing. So you find that the one who mentioned the hadith, that so you find that Ahmad ibn Yunus, we have Yahya ibn Bukir, you have Waqi ibn Jarrah, all narrate the hadith with their narration all mursala, and that's the one that is taken as the stronger narration. So you find of those, in a nutshell, those of all hadith to be da'if, mursala. You have Al-Bayhaqi, one of the Aimah, Ad-Daraqutni in his book Al-Ilal, Ibn Abi Hatim, Sakhawi, Ahmed Shakir, and also Shaykh Albani, rahimahullah, Ibn Hajar, Khattabi, Ibn Mundhir, a host of ulama hadith. So with that, in this case, concerning the kind of somewhat with what we have mentioned, that this hadith is considered to be da'if. So I said sometimes it is used, this hadith, for a person that somewhat to, as he says now, may remain in a marriage using this hadith, because they said they don't want to do something which is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is divorce, because they mention abghad halal ila Allah, the most disliked thing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is divorce. So what we said, the hadith overall is da'if. Even the Shaykh mentioned that, yes, rawatu thiqat, but that's not all the criteria for hadith to be deemed sahih. Overall, that is not that too confusing.
No, question.
Confusing, huh?
Can I clarify something?
Which is relating to this?
No, the isnad, yeah? The isnad, you go musnad, musnad, and you go musa, yeah? So, because that one, yeah, the one that is daif, that is considered to be daif, apart from that, what about it's not the matan? Is there any issue with the matan?
The Sabran Jamil. So as for the matan, say that Sheikh Khatlan, even Uthaymin rahimahullah, so you find that Sheikh Khatlan in this book, where he mentioned the hadith, also he mentioned that there's some discussions they mentioned. So when he mentioned the hadith, he mentioned أما الحديث ابن عمر رضي عنهما النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أبغض halal إلى الله تعالى الطلاق. He mentioned فضعيف, the hadith is daif. Now they mentioned قال بعد أهل العلم, some of the ulama have mentioned إن في متنه نكارة, that even also you have in the matan. So you have the isnad that we just discussed concerning the isnad, what we just mentioned about the isnad. As for the matan, which is the text of the hadith, the wording, that the most disliked thing to Allah is talaq. He mentioned in the matin, some of mentioned nakara. There's things that is objection, that is something which is that discussed or rejected by the ulama. So even when they mention that they said in the sense of there's thing which is halal, which is disliked. So for instance, the hadith can mention that there's things that are halal but disliked. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they mention that is somewhat that's problematic. That part is problematic. So you have that discussion. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentioned that the meaning is somewhat okay. Or mentioned that of the ulama somewhat they have a issue also with the wording of the hadith. The wording of the hadith. Aywa, that's concerning that matter.
In this hadith,
but they even mentioned that some of the ulama, they still, even though they see the hadith maybe the hadith is da'if, but some of the ulama they still use this hadith. Some of the ulama they still use the hadith based upon the general meaning that it indicate that give a permissibility of divorce. Aywa.
In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ refers to divorce as lawful, though it is detestable in the sight of Allah, indicating its detestability-based permissibility in this case. The reason for its detestability in this case is that it puts an end to a marriage that fulfills the legally desired interests. On the other hand, divorce becomes desirable if the wife suffers harm during marital life, such as when there is dissension between her and her husband, or when she dislikes him. In this case, maintaining the marriage causes more harm to the wife, while the Prophet ﷺ says, one should not harm others, nor should one seek benefit for oneself by causing harm to others. Divorce becomes obligatory for the husband if the wife is neither righteous nor upright on the level or on the religious level. For example, the wife may be a negligent in prayer that she abandons it or performs it belatedly, while the husband is unable to rectify her, or she may be morally dishonest. In such cases, it is obligatory for the husband to divorce her according to the preponderant view in this regard. Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on him, said, if the wife commits adultery, it is not for the husband to keep her, otherwise he is considered a cuckold.
So that discussed regarding, so the author, Hafidullah, discussed regarding, as he mentioned, that at-talaq may fall under 5 categories. Then he mentioned 5 ahkam. He mentioned the case of mubah. Then he mentioned the case which is makruh. Then he mentioned the case which is mustahab. And also a case which is at-talaq yajib, and case which is wajib. In the case that he mentioned, that a discussion between the ulama, that if the wife is known to be involved in acts of zina, so is it for the husband to remain or divorce with her? Then I mentioned that, so they mentioned to come wajib upon the husband to divorce her, especially if she's committed zina and still involved in that type of behavior. Then he should get rid of her and divorce her. But I mentioned if the case where she may fall into that act and then made tawbah and try to make better, then for the husband maybe to reconsider the situation, especially if so. But overall, I mentioned, so of the reason that a husband may divorce his wife is due to the fact that she has fallen into that type of act. Aywa.
Similarly, if the husband is neither righteous nor upright concerning religion, it is obligatory for the wife to ask for divorce or separate from him by release against remuneration, khul. It is not for the wife to stay with him as long as he is negligent of his religious duties.
As I mentioned we mentioned that discussion yesterday regarding the wife method of ending the marriage. Aywa.
If the husband has sworn not to have sexual intercourse with his wife and then the waiting period of 4 months passes and he still refuses to do so and expiate for his oath, it is obligatory for him to divorce her and he must be forced to do so. This is because Allah exalted be, he says, for those who swear not to have sexual relations with their wives is a waiting time of 4 months. But if they return to normal relations, then indeed Allah is forgiving and merciful. And if they decide on divorce, then indeed Allah is hearing and knowing. Surah Baqarah, ayat 226 to 227.
In those cases, inshallah, will be of those discussions that will come later. So you have a special bab just a chapter discussed regarding cases like these. Aywa.
It is prohibited for the husband to divorce his wife while she is in her menses, during her period of confinement, during her state of major ritual purity, i.e. the period between the wife's menstruations, in which he has already had sexual intercourse with her. The husband is also prohibited to divorce his wife thrice at a time, as we will point out soon in detail, Allah willing.
So regarding this matter, the author Hafidullah have mentioned regarding يحرم الطلاق على زوج في حال الحيض الزوجة ونفاسها, that will this, as I mentioned, to be discussed further. So that will be discussed further regarding cases where the woman is in her cycle and the husband divorces her. Is this divorce recognized as a divorce or not? That will be discussed further, inshallah ta'ala. Aywa.
You said it's five. Is it five? You said it's wajib, mustahab, haram, makruh, and jaiz.
Ay, mubah.
Okay. Did it mention 5 or 4?
If
I see haram, I see wajib, I see mustahab, I see makruh, and mubah.
Yes, those are the ones he mentioned, so I might missed.
Yeah, I see it, I see it.
Hey, so those are he mentioned.
Yeah.
The first one, mubah,
Mubah,
makruh become the second,
aywa,
then the third,
mustahab,
mustahab,
naam,
and the fourth, yajib.
yeah, naam.
And then I mentioned, he said no, haram case would be concerned that the haram case would be the one that he just mentioned, which will be discussed in more detail.
Yeah, I see it, I see it.
The proofs of the legality of divorce are illustrated in the Quran, the Sunnah, and the consensus of Muslim scholars. Allah exalted be, He says, divorce is twice. Surah Baqarah, ayat 229. Allah also says, O Prophet, when you Muslims divorce women, divorce them for the commencement of their waiting period. Surah At-Talaq, ayat 1. Moreover, the Prophet ﷺ says, divorce belongs only to the one who takes hold of the leg, i.e. the husband. Related by Ibn Majah and Darqutni, and there are other hadiths indicating the same meaning. Besides, many scholars report the consensus of faqihs on the legality of divorce.
Hey, so the author, aywa. So the author, Hafidullah, he mentioned the next matter, which is the evidence proving the permissibility of divorce, so mashru'iyat at-talaq. So he mentioned something from the Quran, the Sunnah, wal Ijma. So he mentioned regarding ayat at-talaq marratan. So the ayah in the Quran and other places mention the permissibility or give the permissibility of talaq. Then he mentioned the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the case regarding إنما الطلاق لمن أخذ بالساق. That hadith is on the discussion. So the hadith that he mentioned, that it is on the discussion regarding so some of the ulama, all the hadith, that it is Hassan with his Majmu' al-Turq, and the other, all the, so of those, all the hadith to be Hassan with all its different narration, but you have some discussion regarding the hadith regarding of one irsal again, and also one of the narrators who's Abdullah ibn La'i'a. So you have that discussion regarding that hadith. Then I mention ijma, and of the ulama of a concern in the ijma between the ulama regarding the permissibility of at-talaq. So the permissibility of talaq is mentioned by the ulama of them amongst the Anabila, Sahib al-Mughni, Ibn Qudama rahimahullah, and others. But they said that the Prophet Islam that he himself had a talaq regarding concerning Hafsa. So the Prophet Islam that he had a talaq, a divorce with Hafsa. Naam, and the hadith in Ahmad, Abu Dawood, and Nasa'i, wa Ibn Majah, a hadith sahih. So that's concerned. So you have other evidence regarding the hadith of Ibn Omar to be mentioned as the main, one of the main hadith regarding divorce and its ahkam. So the permissibility is there, and you have many texts to prove this. Aywa.
The wisdom behind divorce is clear, and it is one of the merits of this great religion, Islam. When necessary, divorce becomes the legal solution to marital problems. Allah exalted be, He says, then after that, keep her in an acceptable manner or release her with good treatment. Surah Baqarah, ayat 229. Allah also says, but if they separate by divorce, Allah will enrich each of them from His abundance, and ever is Allah encompassing and wise. Surah An-Nisa, Ayah 130. Divorce is a relief and a good solution when there is no longer a benefit out of keeping the marriage tie, or when the wife is harmed by staying with her husband, or when either of the married couple is immoral, defiantly disobedient, and irreligious, unlike the other. The communities prohibiting divorce always suffer many serious social problems, such as the spread of suicide, crime, and the corruption of family life. The great religion of Islam permits divorce and makes proper rules to regulate it in order to achieve the desired interests and repel any possible evil. And this is the typical way of Islam in all of its great laws and regulations that maintain the interests of humans in the long and the short run. Therefore, we praise Allah, exalted be He, for His bounty and bestowal of Islam upon us.
It's also Hafidullah that mention of those things of the hikmah, of the reason behind a divorce and why it is permissible in Islam, or Islam give its permissibility. So taking everything into consideration regarding human life, of those ahkam regarding Islam is getting married, where people want to be married and to share their life with someone and to live their life with someone. And also you might find cases where that marriage, that due to reasons that is not fulfilling the objective. So if those objectives are not being fulfilled, that there's unbearable and problems for both parties, male and female, husband and wife, then maybe of those options is for them to divorce. So divorce is allowed, but as Susan mentioned, but also with rules and guidelines. So also divorce is allowed, but there's also rules and guidelines that applies to it. So the Shaykh Hafidullah will now discuss more detail some of those rules and guidelines that must be adhered to if one who wish to offer a divorce. As we mentioned before, that divorce is more so is compared to al-khul. So khula is the lady, the wife, that is initiating the end of the marriage or to terminate the marriage. So with khula is the female, the wife, who's leading in terminating of the marriage, and it has its own rules because of the method of how it is done. And second, regarding divorce also, that is more so the man that is leading in ending the marriage, and that has its own rules. So al-khul by way of the male, the female, at-talaq by way of the male, as to how the marriages may come to an end. Aywa.
The statement of divorce is valid when pronounced by a legally qualified free-willed staying husband or by his authorized representative, as the Prophet ﷺ says, divorce belongs only to the one who takes hold of the leg, i.e. the husband.
So in the case of a talaq, it's more for the husband to be aware of his rule. So with talaq, is for the husband to be aware of the rules. So if he chooses to take this path of ending the marriage by way of talaq, that he does so correctly. Aywa.
However, a Muslim becomes legally unqualified to divorce if his mental faculties are lacking due to something excusable, such as being insane, unconscious, asleep, a sufferer from a disease that causes unawareness, such as pleurisy, being forced to drink an intoxicant, or taking anesthetic for medical treatment. If one is any of the aforementioned cases pronounces the spoken form of divorce, the divorce is not legally effective. To illustrate, Al-Bukhari related in his Sahih authentic book of Hadith that Ali ibn Abu Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, said, every divorce is permissible except that by an insane man. This is because sanity is the principle upon which a legal judgment is based.
So the thing that he mentioned regarding the husband giving divorce, there's certain criteria that has to be in place. And of those regarding that, is would be discussed concerning that is baligh, above the age of puberty. Then a discussion between the ulama if he's mutamayyiz, so he's below the age of puberty, but he has a good sense of, still conscious and aware of things. But you have that discussion. But overall, should be a person above the age of puberty in offering a divorce. And also the second thing of sound mind. So akhil baligh. So if he's so discuss concerning of those things that so cases where if his mind is not functioning his mind is not functioning proper, then his divorce may not be taken. So the case of them being, as mentioned here, is majnoon, that so insanity, and those type of cases that his mind is somewhat not sound, then his divorce is not valid. His divorce is not valid. So the man maybe get married, he's okay, then got sick with his mental state. So during that time, if he was to divorce his wife, it is not counted as a proper divorce because his mind, his mental state is not there. Aywa.
On the other hand, if a person's mental faculties are lacking due to his willingly taking an intoxicant, scholars differ about the validity of his divorce in such a case. In general, the 4 imams as well as a group of Muslim scholars maintain that such a divorce is valid. If a person is forced to divorce his wife and he divorces her in order to avoid injustice, oppression or persecution, his divorce is not legally effective. This is because the Prophet ﷺ says, there is no divorce or emancipation in case of duress, related by by Ahmed, Abu Dawood and Ibn Majah. Moreover, Allah exalted be, He says, whoever disbelieves in i.e. denies Allah after his belief, except for one who is forced to renounce his religion while his heart is secure in faith. Surah An-Nahl, ayah 106. Though disbelief is more serious than divorce, Allah pardons those who pretend to be disbelievers under duress. Thus, divorce with greater reason is not legally effective when the husband is forced to do it. However, divorce can be valid under duress. This is in case the husband has sworn not to have sexual intercourse with his wife, and then 4 months pass and he still refuses to have sexual intercourse with her and expiate for his oath. When a man is in a state of anger but still aware of what he is saying, his divorce is valid in this case. Yet if he is too enraged to be aware of what he is saying, his divorce is deemed void. Moreover, if a man utters the statement of divorce jokingly, his divorce is deemed valid, though he does not mean it, as he meant to utter the spoken form of divorce, and Allah knows best.
So the author, Hafidullah, he discussed several masail regarding this, that some of these masail, or some of these matters are under discussion between the ulama, were by way of khilaf. So he mentioned regarding concerning case regarding the person who may take intoxicant, is this divorce valid or not? So our discussion between the ulama, where of the ulama who hold that the person that drink intoxicant that is divorce, it counts. So the fact that the person who drinks himself drink of intoxicant, then his divorce is considered to be a valid divorce. Then and that's a call of the Hanabila. Some of the Hanabila are concerned that that yaqal talaq as-sukran, that a person who is intoxicant, drunk, and divorces his wife, his divorce is valid. It's a valid form of divorce. That's some of the view of the Hanabila, of the madhab of the Hanabila. Then a second opinion, another opinion, where they make a discussion, a difference regarding if the person drinks something which is the intoxicant, if it is something that is liquid, than if it is non-liquid. So the person, for example, non-liquid, liquid, no drink. Non-liquid would be the person that may take sniffing up his nose and lose it. So they make that distinction. So the person, they make that distinction. So also mention that if it is something which is liquid, that is drunk, it's valid. If it is something that other than this, it's not valid. Now, then, but you have that discussion between the ulama regarding those type. But overall, as the Shaykh mentioned, that the ikhtilaf between the ulama regarding sukran, the person who is intoxicant, that it goes back to mabnin ala al-khilafi tasarrufat as-sukran. It goes back generally regarding what's ruling regarding a person who is intoxicant. Is his actions and his word used against him or not? Or is he excused? If the person is intoxicant, is his actions and his words used against him, or is excused? So they mentioned that of those in this, they mentioned that it goes back to that in his Jumhur of the ulama, all concerning that. Jumhur, his action and his speech is held against him. To the person who is intoxicated, that what he does or do is held against him. That's called Jumhur of the ulama. Then a second opinion mentioned that, that they make a distinction so that regarding the person who's intoxicated or intoxicated, that some of his action is against him and some are not. The ones that are against him, they mention, is af'al. So anything that he does by way of his action, he goes and harms someone, that's held against him. He breaks up someone else, he burns someone else down, steals someone's car, then those things are held against him. But things that he says is not held against him. With me? So things that are done by action, it's held against him, and things that are done by way of speech is not held against him. So if, in this case, if he was to say something, it was to divorce his wife in this case, then it's not held because it's considered to be something which is verbal, not something which is a physical action. So overall, you have a discussion between the ulama that the Shaykh kind of somewhat, you more go with that view regarding, is more inclined towards that particular view that by the person who is intoxicated, that his actions are held against him, but as for his speech, then he is given some leniency regarding his speech. So in this case, his divorce would be not considered to be valid. His divorce would not considered to be valid. So they mentioned that of those who take this position, that they mentioned that Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah has a book that is in print regarding going to the, or that he mentioned, of the thing they mentioned that of those who make that distinction between actions and his speech, actions against him, speech not, they mention هذا واختيار الإمام ابن تيمية, also اختياره of contemporaries Shaykhuna Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, and also Muhammad ibn Uthaymin alayhim rahmatullah ta'ala, and also concerning in Al-Mamlaka, in that country, that the fatwa is on this. So the fatwa of the ulama is that they made a distinction regarding actions and speech. As for his speech, then regarding like in talaq, it's not considered a talaq, a valid talaq, and they mentioned that that's the view taken by many. So that's the view that is now applied in Al-Mamlaka by the Mashaykh regarding fatwa in that, on that particular topic. So that's concerning that matter. Then the Shaykh he mentioned also regarding ikra. The person is give divorce under duress. Now the person is forced. That so they said concerning like under duress, and said that a person who have like authority over you and can really force you and can do you harm. So that would be like a person of authority. So for example, a person under duress, the person says, no, that my wife, she was forcing me. She was just talking to you and shouting at you, but you understand, and cussing you out. But that is, will that be considered to be duress? Now, if you have a knife through your throat, then that's a different matter. So she's just shouting at the husband type of thing, or father that's shouting at you, divorce my daughter, you understand? Are you under duress? Or it's a case where a person, you understand, that said, I'm going to harm you, you understand? And you know the person has the ability to execute it. The person has the ability to execute it. Then the mention you have so is looking at those cases regarding duress, when it is valid and when it is not valid. So the person of your life is at risk from someone who actually can carry through on what they're saying. Then, and the person divorces his wife, then that's due. The person then is excused in that case. Is excused in that case. Then I mentioned the next of those topics that he discuss يقع طلاق من الغضبان الذي يتصور ما يقول. That he mentioned regarding concern the case of a person who is anger. So giving divorce out of anger. So instead of a common thing that is usually mentioned regarding divorce cases, that when a husband that they mentioned, that it was done out of anger. It was done out of anger. As what Sheikh Khatlan he mentioned regarding this particular matter, says many cases regarding divorce today, it kind of somewhat revolves around this. It is said that the husband in a state of anger, so does the divorce, does it count or not counts? Then he mentioned regarding concern of this matter, that Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah have a book that discussed this matter, but overall, and others, overall Ibn Qayyim that mentioned that as for the al-ghadib, anger, they put into three categories. So anger is classed into three categories. غضب الشديد الذي يفقد الإنسان معه عقله, where a person is in a state of intense anger, where the person have lost his mind. We call that rage. Is that rage? So I said rage. That state of rage, a person like lose it. Nam. So you have those cases where a person in a state of rage. We're using rage, the person have like lost his mind. Nam. Then I mentioned that with the ulama, that case, then that divorce, it does not count. Because the person, as in this case, it go back to what was mentioned before, he has lost his senses or lost his mind. Nam. So the person in a state of غضب الشديد الذي يفقد الإنسان معه عقله. The person, this state of rage, we have lost his sense of mind due to what's going on, that he doesn't know what he's up or down, never know what he's saying or not saying. He doesn't know what's going on. He's blank out by way of his thoughts. Then I mentioned that فلا يقع طلاق بالإجماع. The ulama as an agreement that talaq, it does not count. As mentioned by Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, so in that case of rage, it doesn't count. The second level or the second type that they play that category would be ghadab al-yasir. Ghadab yasir. So the person upset, slightly upset. The person slightly upset. So that slight upset, the person still function normal, but he's upset. Is not cycle calm, he's upset, but it's slight anger. In that case, they mention هذا يقع معه الطلاق بالإجماع. In that second case, which will be it is considered to be talaq is valid bil ijma, which consensus between the ulama, it counts as a talaq. The third category, the third case is regarding that is found that you mentioned وهو أكثر في وقوع الناس. We find that many people fall into this category, which is the third category. Hal al-wusta, which you refer to as al-wusta, with the person التي يكون الغضب فيها شديد. The person can somewhat is angry, severe angry, ولكن لا يصل إلى درجة فقدان عقله. He hasn't reached a level where he is in a state of rage. So he's upset, intense upset, but he still, as his faculty, still know what's going on. But he's very upset. But said not a stage of rage. So, but very upset, still know what's going on regarding concern the person. Then they mention that, so that's the case where you find a khilaf between the ulama, a discussion between the ulama on this matter. So on this third level, which is the middle point, the middle level, that the ulama, they fall into two views. Those who say yaqa talaq ghadban, the one who's in this middle stage, is talaq, is considered to be valid, it's counted as a talaq, and that's the matter of the Hanabila. So the person that in that case is considered to be a valid talaq according to the Hanabila. Then or they mention a person that he's still alim, he still know what he's doing. So in that case he's upset, but he know what he's doing and understand what he's doing. Yeah, but he's upset. It counts. According to them, it counts based upon the general dalil about if it is uttered, it counts. And to say otherwise, then you need something as a proof. So they mention that it accounts based upon the general adilla regarding giving talaq. Then I mention the second case. So the second view, so the first view, all that it counts. The second view, la yaqa talaq. The second view, in this case, the person said that he's in between, upset, know what he's doing, but very still upset. They mention that it does not count as a talaq. And they class him as, and of those who can somewhat of this view, they mention Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, Ibn Qayyim, and their fatwa is on this, and of contemporaries who have taken this view that it doesn't count as a talaq in this third category. He mentioned Sheikh Abdulaziz bin Baz and also Muhammad ibn Uthaymeen, alayhim rahmatullah. So the third category, the one who said dispute between the ulama. So those who hold it counts as the view of the Hanabila, and also it does not count is some of the Hanabila that he mentioned here. Of them Ibn Taymiyyah, who you consider to be a Jabal amongst them, Ibn Qayyim alayhi rahmatullah, and also of contemporary who agree with that view, Ibn Uthaymeen and Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah. The Sheikh he mentioned that yaqa talaq min ghadban. That's what you the Sheikh he mentioned ويقع الطلاق من الغضبان الذي يتصور ما يقول. So like this is the third category we're discussing. The third category regarding talaq. So is view, even the view of the author, more inclined to which of the views? The first view. That it yaqa. That it counts as a divorce. So the case with a person that he is aware of what's going on, the person is a sawwar, that it's seems as if he's more inclined towards the view that it counts. So you have that discussion between the ulama. So they mentioned that how will a person now resolve this matter? It goes back to the person that you go back to as a person of the mufti or the qadi. So whatever position the qadi takes and judging that matter, then that is what is binding upon those people. So in those cases where the husband and wife, they claim that the divorce is done but that they were upset, or the husband was upset, and whatever, is for both to explain to the person who's that judge, who's looking at the case, and to for him to listen to both sides, and then for him to make a judgment. Whatever judgment he comes to, then that's what binding up. That is what they should follow, because he's acting as the judge. So regardless there's a khilaf, whatever opinion that he takes, then they should go with it. So that's concerning that matter. So the Shaykh and mentioned that in that case, whatever opinion the person take, or whatever in that matter, it goes back to the one who's looking at the matter regarding their final judgment. So that's concerning those masail. Aywa. That's the end. In discuss, the plan was to we stop there because he discussed concerning at-talaq as-sunni wa talaq al-bid'i. That's our next chapter with you. Okay, then khalas then. So we'll end there, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala.
In terms of the man, when you mentioned about the one who's Majnun, obviously our brother Elias is asking about, can a man issue talaq if his wife is Majnun? So the wife's Majnun.
I understand.
And he also mentions in...
Okay, let me answer that when you come to the second one.
Yeah, basically continuation, but you can answer.
Something that says that with talaq is not looking at talaq, yes, is more so is looking at the state of the husband, not so much the wife. So the state of the husband. So if the husband is sound mind, then is action. Because I said no, with talaq is more the action. It's the word is the right of the husband. As for khula, we said, goes back to the wife. So in the case if the wife is maybe majnoona, you understand? But if the husband is aqil, then his talaq counts. It's just for him to just make, you understand, for him to maybe in making his decision as to, you understand, to weigh up the situation based upon the condition of his wife. That answer that question?
One of the things you mentioned is you said that for someone to give talaq, the person have to be baligh and aqil.
Aywa.
Now, but he has to be baligh to get married, isn't it? So is it to get married? Is it a condition to be baligh?
It's not a condition.
It's not a condition.
Not necessarily not a condition.
But to give talaq, he has to be baligh.
I said there's a discussion regarding to said yes. So that you have what we call with the ulama discuss. You have baligh, so the person is above the age of puberty, right? So puberty, 15. You have different factors as a sign of puberty. Now, but we said during the person will reach the age of puberty, or the person that have shown the sign of puberty, so they consider to be technically a male or either male or female in Islam. So a girl, if she's at her cycle and she's 12, she's considered to be a woman Islamically, right? So at that age, does that know she can get married? Now, but that you might find that in today's society, that they have set in most society, they have an age that they set regarding getting married. In most cases, would be either 16 and upwards. That sense in most places is 16 and upwards. But said no, so according to them, so said no, that is according to what is the practice in some countries. But as for Islamically, that a woman, if she's above the age of, the age of puberty, then or boy, they can get married. So said that in that case, people must be mindful of the country that they're living in and their laws that they have. What do they call that? So be mindful of the countries that one is in and the laws that they follow. And we, can I mention, consider mumayyiz, you have balig, then that's not a problem. Mumayyiz is the age which is below. This is sometimes they start from like 7 upwards before they reach the age of. So in that case, they can make, they're somewhat sensible enough to can make certain decision. Not all, but can make distinction with certain things. So you have someone mention that if the age of mumayyiz, that even with them, some include that they can do divorce and talaq, or marriage and divorce. But that will be with with certain rules in place without consent of the parents. Full consent.
So the author mentions about the condition of the man, for example, him being angry, yeah?
Being sorry?
Angry to divorce his wife.
Okay.
The opposite, being in a severe state of depression or severe state of sadness, for example. Would his talaq be valid in this case as well?
Sheikh Raslan, he mentioned that. Al-Mara Nafsiyya, the person might go and show, and they said these type of, what colors, no?
That fall under him being a Vader aqid.
Some say it all depends on that the extent of those. The person might say that I'm going through, like they have some type of, depression. You understand? Depression doesn't mean that, so everyone said depression to what level and state. If the state is depression, he's considered to be his mind is completely not functioning properly of his depression.
Yeah, because for example, he loses a job, he's got a big job, he's working in he loses his job, he becomes depressed, he don't want, and then he said like, I divorce you, because that thing that he attached to, how he's working, things like that, it's the thing that drove him to depression.
Yeah, but the state of depression that the person become considered to be insane. Yes, he's going through, says no, that he's going through some form of
He's not
himself to a degree. But that's him not being fully himself, that does this constitute a person then of lost his faculty of rational thinking in most part? So in some case may not, in some case may not. In some case yes, in some case not. Just like a case also with another case that a person that is at times we know a person with more men, the husband, at times he has a mental illness. And depression like a mental illness, but he has a mental illness where at times he's not well, where it's considered to be majnoon. And at times, with that mental illness, he's still functioning, but not to his full performance, but still functioning and making decision. So the time that he said to be, for example, is considered to be not he's more overcome by the illness, then in that case he's excused. And the time that he's somewhat functioning, then it counts. So it based upon, he said, as mentioned, is ahwal, is situation and circumstance. In cases of people who are ill with a mental situation.
How does one decide that person's gone insane?
The doctor. So the alim will consult with the doctor and know the person's history.
But if it's like a one-time thing where the guy just got really mad.
That's a different term. If the case that's a decided decision said Grant is out of anger or out of being mentally ill. Anger, we mentioned this scenario. So with anger, we mentioned the scenario that there are 3. Two extreme. One where it is ijma, it doesn't count, where the person has a state of what? Severe anger. So rage, we call it rage. Just use the word rage. He doesn't know what's going on. You understand? Then you have a next case where to the next extreme, the person is angry, but angry khafif. You understand? He's a bit upset with his wife, but he divorced her. Fully know what he's doing, the consequence. He's in a mood. You understand? You use the word in a mood. You understand? Then that counts. They will say the middle level is now where you have the discussion. And that's the you understand, it goes back to at one person might see it as it counts, another may not see it. So go back to the alim or the judge, the qadi, to make that decision. Because now making a decision, that's now ijtihad. It's now ijtihad.
You can
Like,
only
it's
say,
like the third one now.
And the third one, the third case, that is in between.
القدر الشديد لكن ما فقد أحد.
أي هذا هو. أي so يحتاج إلى اجتهاد. So for that alim, the person or the mediator, for them now to, with a person of ilm, that case you need a person of ilm, person of study Islam, to look at those cases, not just anyone, to make that decision.
is there any like external factors? So like if the judge was to decide, it's the only way you can decide just by asking the person.
So you go through the procedure of having discussion with those involved and kind of somewhat get a sense of what happened to make a decision. To actually understand, so you might ask, or you might describe your husband in that state. And ask, no, so you use different factors to see what actually occurred, to what extent, and then make a decision.
I know we touched the topic about the intoxicants, but you see, you mentioned like sniffer work, yeah?
Hey.
But a man, you know in the time of man,
Hey.
they smoke weed, for example.
Hey, we them say all those stuff.
That will go to that category.
So yeah, so the ones who separate into two, they mention one which is ma'i, which is thing that is all liquid. You understand, which is beverages. Then a person now who, you understand. So those beverages, what are the beverages? Normal beverages, isn't it? Spirit. But then you have the other side that says no mukhaddarat, which be considered those type of. So the person, what about we have sniffing, or the person might inject, or whatever, or the person might smoke something. So any of those mukhaddarat that are used, then that fall into that second category. You understand? So that's the thing. So, both of this now it goes back to at the crux of the matter, what Sheikh Khatlan mentioned goes back to regarding concern those cases that, as he mentioned regarding, that is looking regarding things that are done, that a person, whatever the reason that he is in that state, the thing that he have done to be in that state, that it goes back to is aqwal wal af'al. As for aqwal, then it is treated different from his af'al. So he's still accountable regarding his actions to an extent. As for his speech, then those things, he may be excused. Leniency.
In the next chapter, we're going to be dealing with the witnesses too.
Witnesses. That's the distance and answer that all those things will come in portion, inshallah ta'ala, regarding those other matters. Because this is a muqtasar that if not mentioned, they will include certain things that may be vital. Regarding concerning witnesses, they are not mentioned in detail that in talaq is having witnesses a must or not. If not mentioned, then we'll include as those are common things that are asked.
And just my last question. So when it comes to talaq, if the man, for example, he has his intellect, he has all faculties and things like that, but he gets to a stage, for example, he might be dying, he might have an underlying illness, he's dying, but this is the sabab. The sabab is that I'm divorcing you because I'm dying.
Some said if he's divorced now, for what reason though? Said I don't know that he's dying.
That's it. That is the reason. I'm dying. I'm divorcing you.
Those cases are looked at regarding concerning a person may divorce a woman because of that. Those cases are looked at. Maybe just want to free her, but said if he die, he's gonna free her, isn't it?
If he dies, yeah.
Or you're trying to cut her off from me, you understand? So it could be other things, you understand? Where if it's like that.
Are you saying like, okay, if he's known to be dying and he gives divorce, but some miraculous reason he doesn't die? Yeah, is that what you mean?
Yeah, you understand? So if he's dying, then he's.
Yeah, so it would be more of a thing if he was supposed to be dying and then he doesn't die.
Yeah, but
Is the divorce still?
Because if he divorced sort of died and she moved on and he didn't die, then he just lost her. You understand?
One of the Sahabas say that if they was dying, the first thing they would do is get married or.
Get married if they're dying.
I forgot when it was. I can't remember.
Well, inshallah, if anything, we'll discuss that inshallah next week regarding. But also the last part the Sheikh he mentioned regarding concern al-hazil, regarding a person who may divorce his wife in a, out of, he said, what a word that he used, jest or joking. You understand? So a person might, the thing about with talaq, when those words are verbally uttered, then it is to be carried through unless there's a reason to say otherwise. So when a person uttered the word of the talaq, nam, to his wife, then the thing is that it applies until there's a fact to say otherwise. So a person do it out of jokingly in front of his wife, then it counts. Because this matter is not a joking matter.
It can be conditional.
Conditional.
Now,
Cave.
I was reading one of the Salaf. I'll bring the book to your book. One of the Salaf, I don't know, he was like telling his wife, if you walk down, your
It's a different discussion. He said that a talaq bil shurut, that's a different matter. Those things are covered.
How does that go with the principle that actions are influenced by intention?
Hey, so that's the evidence. Actions are by intention. So certain actions, I said, if the person said actions are based upon what is apparent. So as apparent, he says what? I divorce her.
But how about if he says, I did it joking, I didn't mean it?
Yeah, in certain things that in this case of divorce concerns an action said that we judge based on what it is apparent. So in these cases, the judgment, it goes with what is apparent, not what the person is saying, that's my intention.
So if he makes it obvious that he's joking.
Then so regardless, the fact that he utters it, it counts. As the word utters, then it counts. So it's not something to joke about.
Of course, if he says it as a quote or something, that doesn't count.
Sorry?
If he says it as a quote, like he's quoting something.
It's a different than they're not applying to. So if the person, okay, I'm sitting in front of my wife and I read a book, and I said that in the book says the man said, I talak you, and I just read what to my wife. I'm just reading something from a book. That's a different matter completely.
And also, I don't know if it's going to come in. So if there's dispute between how many talaq has been given, which side is taking? Is it the husband's side? So if the wife said, no, you've given me 3 talaq, and the husband said, no, I only gave you 2 talaq, which side is taking?
So the question is, you have some matter which is goes back to qada. You understand? The general thing in the book is gives a general framework as to what's involved in talaq. The book most likely would not cover everything. Some of those matters go back are more detailed matter regarding them. Said so at times the husband might take his word, but she might be more trustworthy than he is, and he's known to be a liar. You understand? So you may have a general principle. Yes, it's the husband, but at times may go outside. It's based upon qara'in, based upon other factors. So that some of those cases said case like those goes back really to the qadi. To look, because those cases needs investigation and to be looked into. But as a general thing, yes, the husband may be given precedent at time, but due to other factors, then the word of the wife may be taken. With that, inshallah ta'ala, we'll end. Billahi ta'ala tawfiq wa hadila as-sabil. That was name